We've invited you to join us today to provide you with an update on all the work that's happening in the K-12 education system to make sure that BC students and their families can continue their learning during this pandemic. This briefing is about an overview of all the things that are happening in BC's school system. It is not an announcement about BC schools reopening. After I provide an update, Stephanie will make remarks on behalf of school trustees, and then we will open it up to questions. I'm very grateful for the dedication of everybody involved in BC's K-12 community, specifically students, parents, support staff, and educators, all essential as we navigate through this very difficult, unprecedented time together. The work we're seeing throughout BC and in our schools and in our homes is truly incredible given the circumstances and the hand that we've been dealt by this vicious pandemic. Here in BC, we're fortunate to have partners in the K-12 education system who are dedicated to the needs of our students and families. As you'll recall, we made a decision to suspend in-person classroom instruction on March the 17th, then under the direction of the provincial health officer to help mitigate the spread of COVID-19. Face-to-face instruction continues to be suspended for the majority of students in the province, although schools remain open for some students, including the children of essential service workers and those that are vulnerable and need more learning supports. All schools in BC, both public and independent, are operating under the guidelines established by the Provincial Health Officer and the Centre for Disease Control to ensure the safety of our students and education professionals. I'm proud of the incredible amount of work that has been done in the last 5 weeks to make sure our kids can keep learning. We've worked closely with all 60 school districts, independent school authorities, First Nation schools, teachers, school leaders, support staff, public health officials, and all our education partners on a coordinated approach. This work is led by our Ministry Integrated Planning Framework and guidelines developed by the Ministry to support school districts and independent school authorities in their planning and delivery of educational opportunities and supports during this pandemic. These guidelines are continuously updated with new information, resources, and examples of best practices that are inspiring to one another no matter what part of the province we live in. The Ministry also developed a teaching guide to help teachers as they educate our students in a very, very different way under these circumstances. And we've ensured teachers can connect with their students by video conferencing technology, providing access to a secure enterprise version of Zoom. We have onboarded to date more than 20,000 BC teachers who instruct more than 275,000 students with the Zoom Enterprise video conferencing program. Other video conferencing platforms are being utilized in different parts of the province by the teaching workforce right across BC. For parents and educators, the Ministry launched the Keep Learning website, where families can access free learning resources to supplement schoolwork, as well as get tips on how to help children learn and how to ensure the well-being while they're at home. This site is very well utilized indeed and has seen more than 300,000 unique views since it was launched at the end of March. Our government knows that mental health is particularly important right now for children and young people. Through a partnership with the WE organization, we've made sure students and teachers have access to learning resources through the WE Schools program that support mental well-being, resiliency, and connectedness. We also offer crisis supports for those students that are involved and are battling mental health and addictions issues, for teenagers through our Foundry Community Wellness Hubs and communities right across BC. Recently, we invested $3 million more into public libraries to enhance digital literacy, supports and programs, e-books, and to provide another layer of online learning support for families. Schools and classrooms are developing flexible and innovative ways to accommodate the needs of each school community. BC is a diverse province. We know that there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach to continued learning, but all districts and education partners are guided by the same set of 4 ministry-developed principles in their planning. The first is to ensure a healthy and safe environment for all students, families, and employees in every school setting in BC. The second is to provide the services needed to support children of our essential workers, which is happening now across the province. The third is to support vulnerable students who may need special assistance. And the fourth is to provide continuity of educational opportunities for all students. In BC, Our government has put a strong focus on vulnerable students and making sure the children of our frontline health workers are supported and their children are cared for at school so they can keep helping British Columbians. Schools have also proactively identified supports or accommodations to support learning for students with disabilities. More needs to be done for this group of learners, and we are working with MCFD, school districts, and special needs parent advocacy organizations to deliver more help to parents and kids with complex learning needs. School districts and independent schools are now weeks into actively providing learning opportunities for students. Learning is occurring both with and without technology. Districts are making sure families who don't have access to technology are getting the help they need by loaning out their equipment. And to date, more than 23,000 computers and devices are being loaned to students so they can continue their education. School districts have redeployed their IT and computer technicians to provide tech support for families to help remote learning technology in their homes. Our government has worked with internet service providers to ensure families have low-cost internet or created local internet hotspots so free Wi-Fi is available to multiple families in a community or on a First Nations reserve. Where online learning isn't possible, schools are continuing to deliver printed learning packages to students or flash drives with everything a student needs to continue learning at home. We're also seeing some school districts who currently have students coming into school buildings in rural and remote communities, where schools are often the most reliable place to access Wi-Fi and social distancing can be managed. I'm heartened by the creative and compassionate stories that we hear every day emerging from BC's school system. School communities across the province worked quickly to provide now 75,000 meals delivered to students each week, supporting over 16,000 kids that are otherwise vulnerable and experiencing food insecurity. Teachers, education assistants, administrators, and school support staff are putting together weekly grocery hampers for families, delivering bagged lunches to homes or at designated hubs for meal pickup. Just as the Ministry and the Provincial Health Office directed school districts to make sure kids are supported to learn at home, we also immediately directed them to provide in-class supports for essential service worker children. Districts provide the same supports to students with special needs and other vulnerable students who may struggle with learning at home. We've worked with the Provincial Health Officer to clarify that these supports can be provided in a safe manner for both students and staff. There are currently several thousand essential service workers children in public schools, and districts are working to expand this number each and every day and each and every week. An additional 1,300 students who are the children of essential service workers are being supported in independent schools. School districts have been expanding in-home school learning supports for additional occupations on the province's essential service worker list, including those who work in essential retail jobs. To make sure our schools are safe for these students, we worked with the Provincial Health Officer to develop a set of health and safety protocols which all school districts have implemented. This includes controlled access to buildings, maintaining physical distancing among staff, and implementing distancing strategies for the students that are in schools. Many sectors in the province are starting to plan for the future, including the education sector. We will continue taking direction from the Provincial Health Officer, from the Premier and Cabinet on when and how schools would be able to increase the number of students receiving in-class instruction and what a phased approach can look like. Right now, we are working with other ministries and our education partners to develop plans for a number of possible scenarios, including resuming some in-class instruction in a controlled and measured way for the future. Ministry staff are researching and we're contacting other jurisdictions to understand the planning and protocols that have been put in place for a controlled return to in-class instruction. New Zealand, for example, students will go back to school starting tomorrow. We are monitoring and learning from places like that and other jurisdictions. This will help us here in British Columbia inform an evidence-based plan for BC which minimizes the risk of COVID-19 transmission when the conditions are appropriate. There's so many people to thank, and I did thank some of them at the outset, but it is really asking people to continue these efforts under very difficult in BC and right around the world. Together, our province has made good decisions that have helped contain the spread of COVID-19. Our success in BC thus far has been shaped by being diligent and thoughtful and driven by the science and data constantly assessed by Dr. Bonnie Henry, the PHO, and the CDC. She and her team and Minister Dix will be updating BC's pandemic modeling this Friday. It's important for British Columbians to tune in to that update. Today, it's essential that we all continue to take the necessary preventative measures to keep ourselves, our families, and all British Columbians safe and healthy. We will return to regular school life down the road, and that road will be shorter and sooner if we continue to act together and act now with measures to prevent the further spread of COVID-19. British Columbia has had an internationally recognized and world-class education system before the pandemic, and we will have a world-class education system on the other side of this pandemic.